righty, here we go. Welcome everybody to the Town Hall, Voice Project Town Hall on faith. As you remember from our last get together with Tim Allen, we had talked about with Chief of Police, Chief Craig, who's recently retired from Detroit. We had a conversation about how chaplains can strengthen communities. And we have a long history in the Voice Talk project looking at chaplains, and we've done a lot with the faith community on the military side, but this is the first time we've done law enforcement. So we're pretty excited about the work that's being done in Detroit. We have with us today Admiral Margaret Kibben, who is the Chief Chaplain for the United States House of Representatives. We have Pastor Linnell Caldwell, who is the Detroit Police Department Chaplain. We should be getting joined by Will Cherry, who is the Las Vegas Police Department Chaplain. And unfortunately, Dr. King couldn't make it today. Before we get started, I mentioned earlier that one of the vets from our program, from the Life Aid program, one of the longtime participants in our program, Jerry Magdalenas, passed away last week from his battle with cancer, and also he had a diabetic ulcer on his foot. And I'm happy to say we are being joined today by his daughter, Gloria, who's sitting in on the call. And I thought we would start off the call today. I know a lot of the vets that are on here today knew Jerry. And for those of you that didn't know Jerry, he had the heart the size of Texas, and he had a big personality, and he was an up and down guy. He battled a lot of demons and a lot of health issues over the past 10 years. I'd say, besides myself, that's joined us today, I'd say Dick Brock probably knew him the best of everybody here, other than, of course, Gloria. But I thought we'd start off with a moment of silence for Jerry. Thank you guys for that. I am happy to report that we've been able to, through the hard work of Gloria and her mom, we've been able to put together the funeral arrangements. It's still coming together, but the service will be held on June 30th. That's a week from Wednesday, so about 2 weeks from today. We'll have the service June 30th. The burial will take place at the Miramar National Military Cemetery at 2 p.m. I'll be sending out information to everybody who wants to try to be there. We're organizing some type of mass at the Camp Pendleton chapel that'll take place before the burial. So we'll give all the details out as soon as we get everything solidified, because I know quite a few of you, Javier, Arlene, Dick, and a bunch of others, will want to be there. And we'll go from there. For those of you that are on the call that didn't know Jerry, Jerry was a United States Marine. He served quite a long time in the Marine Corps. He was medically discharged to Walter Reed when he was blown up by a mortar attack. Suffered some physical injuries, traumatic brain injury. That's where I met him first, was at Walter Reed in 2010. And then he got involved in my program in 2011. And like gum on your shoe, I couldn't shake him. And he was with me all the way till the end. And I know Admiral Kibben got to meet him at our Las Vegas retreat a couple years ago, where he gave quite an impassioned speech about military service and how to take care of one another and how to take advantage of this program, which I'm going to share that recording with Gloria here shortly. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. Admiral Kim, I don't know if you want to say anything, and then we'll move on.
No, I think a death like that impacts all of you in so many different ways, particularly if you did know Jerry and had a chance to be touched by him and his generous spirit. But all of us, because we are a band of fellows, of brothers and sisters. One person's loss affects all of us in a profound way. So continue to monitor yourself, not just your health, but your well-being in these days as you grieve, because it's real, but it's understandable. And find people that you love who can surround you and give you the support and the care that you need and deserve these days. Thanks, John.
Yeah, the one thing I would say as the leader of Life Aid is that when you have medical issues and you have health concerns, take care of them. Jerry was very stubborn, and he didn't take care of stuff until it was almost too late sometimes. And I know there's a couple incidences, especially in the last year or so, where he ended up in the Long Beach VA, where Dick went and visited him a couple times, and when it came to his foot, especially, he was just not going to listen to the doctors. And so my appeal to all of you is take care of your health. I know our program, we talk a lot about diet, nutrition, and exercise and how important health is. And the other thing I want to tell everybody is our Life Score app that we've created is now in the App Store. If you have a Google Android phone, you can just go to your App Store on your Android device and look up Life Score, and you can download the app. If you have the Apple Store, it's a little more complicated, and you have to go through Test Flight, and I have to send you the link to get the invite. So if you email me at jw54@novetalone, I can send you the information to download the app on an Apple device. But it's just a demo version right now. It's our very first test, but we're very excited about what it can do for people, especially in the military, veteran, first responder communities. And we're going to be rolling it out to you guys very, very soon. So with that, I want to get started back like we were talking about. We had a discussion. So first, let me give you the boilerplate stuff. The VOICE Project is a national nonpartisan effort to affect lasting social change by bringing together great team players from the veteran entertainment, sports, with community leaders to build bridges with law enforcement and improve the health and safety of the communities where we live. All audience members except for the panel, please mute yourself until called upon by the moderator. We'll have a question and answer session on the second half of the program. Please keep your questions to 1 minute or less. This will allow for the most interaction and questions to be addressed. If you have questions or comments, you can type them into the chat box, and we will get to them as we go along. Remember, this is a nonpartisan event, so we don't care who you vote for. No political statements. It's a positive, respectful dialogue on how to improve our communities by being more kind and civil to those we don't know, those we don't look like, and we don't possibly agree with. And if for some reason you can't follow those guidelines, you will hit the parachute and you will self-destruct immediately. Our first guest I want to introduce, because he was sort of the spearhead of it all, is Pastor Linnell Caldwell from the Detroit Police Department. He's got several or most of his crew on the call, which is exciting. And if you could just kind of talk a little bit about what you do and what's unique about what Detroit does with chaplains in the police force.
Well, thank you, John, and I thank you all for being on today. I take my hat off to Jerry. We honor him on today as well. Always remember and never forget is always my motto. And so we'll lift his family up in prayer as well. I have the honor to be the chief chaplain of the Detroit Police Chaplain Corps. As you see, we have most of our executive team and chaplains on as well. We are a paramilitary organization. We mimic and mirror our Detroit Police Department. Our function is to serve our officers and their families. And we have a overseer, which is our chief neighborhood liaison, which consists of our new chief now, Chief James White, First Assistant Chief Todd Bettison, Commander Kyra Hope, Lieutenant McCure, and then Sergeant Gwendolyn Strokes, and then our go-between guy is Corporal Douglas Bartell, which these people make sure we have all the necessary resources to accomplish the task that we have before us. What we do as a chaplain corps, we are 103 chaplains here in the city of Detroit, and these are chaplains that are well trained. They have to go through an 8 weeks training at the academy, which consists of mental health, suicide by cop, a day at the precinct, CPR, Narcan training, firearm training, senior abuse and aging, CISM, post, gunshot wound tournament, and CISM negotiation, crisis negotiation. And so we are trained in these areas. So we're not just preachers who just go out on the street. We are preachers that have been trained to understand what goes on in the community. What really helped us and propelled us to move into the dimension where Chief James Craig was in, we had a meeting with him. We asked him, what is the vision? What is your vision for the chaplains? And he said in the meeting, he said, I want the chaplains to bridge the community with the police. And so what happened through that, we had to try to create that. And what we do or did, we have chaplains in our police precincts. We have at least 8 chaplains in a precinct. We have 12 precincts, and they're there from day, afternoon, and midnight shifts. We do ride-alongs. Sometimes we do the third guy in the police car, because we understand that the police community is a very strange community, and they really won't open up to you until they know that you see and understand what they see every day. And so we actually jump out of cars with them. We actually run down the street with them. Why? Because, we are part of the family of blue. But our main objective is called the ministry of presence. We're not there to preach to our officers. We are there just to be a listening ear. And when our officers come, they share their utmost secrets, their hearts, what's going on in their families. And we have an opportunity to help build them up, to encourage them to, continue to do their job the way they were called to do it. These chaplains, I take my hat off to them, because they are the boots on the ground. They are the ones that go out. We go on crime scenes. When there's a 911 call, we're out there with the community. Just like last night, someone got shot and killed.
Uh-oh. He froze up.
Over 200 people standing up laying in the street or laying in the car dead. We're the ones that comfort the community, while the police officers are doing their job. And so that is an awesome task. I like to say this, I hug people that I don't know, and hug people that I may never see again. But that's the ministry of the chaplains here in the city of Detroit. And so I believe we have an awesome chief now, Chief White, which is 110% behind the chaplain corps to give us the support that we need, that we continue to do the things that we do. So pretty much in a nutshell, that's what we do as Detroit Police Chaplains. We are boots on the ground. We are out there in the community, not just when something bad happens. We're out there when the community have functions. We're out there in their community meetings. We get to hear the heart of the community. And that's why I believe that we didn't have all the burning and rioting in our city, is because we have relationship with community, and community have relationship with the police as well as the community. So thank you for having me, and any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Thank you for that introduction. So also with us today is Admiral Margaret Kibben. She, like I said, right now she's the Chief Chaplain for the United States House of Representatives. Prior to that, she was the Chief Chaplain for the Department of Navy, and prior to that, she was the Chief Chaplain for the Marine Corps, which is where I first met her. And so I'd like to have her talk about how the chaplains in the military work, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then we're going to have a discussion about what we can do going forward. So go ahead, Admiral Kibben, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks so very much. I appreciate your the opportunity to be here. Let me make a slight correction on my title. I'm the chaplain of the house. I'm not the chief chaplain. I'm the only chaplain. So I suppose I could be the chief and the lackey all in the same boat. But the chaplain of the house. I'm joined by Chaplain Black, who's the chaplain of the Senate. Interestingly enough, both of us were the chief of chaplains of the Navy prior to our appointments to these particular jobs. He about 12 years before I showed up. But as a chaplain in the Navy and the Marine Corps, Navy chaplains served both the Navy and the Marine Corps and as well the Coast Guard. I served on active duty for 32 years and had a chance to see a little bit of everything with respect to what chaplaincy looks like. In fact, my very first tour was at Quantico, and I had responsibility for security battalion in the brig. So technically, I was a police chaplain on my first tour on active duty. And you're absolutely right, Chaplain Caldwell. You know, if you get to do a ride along, especially the ones at night, they really do appreciate the fact that you understand what it is that they do and how it works. But that's what makes chaplaincy, is that we are in and among. I've always said that ministry in the chaplaincy gives us an opportunity to eat, sleep, and breathe the same things and endure the same things our congregation is eating, sleeping, breathing, and enduring. And that gives not only street cred, but it also helps them to realize that you get it. It not only says that, okay, you're not just here for the interim, but you're really here for us and understand what we're dealing with. And oh, by the way, you're dealing with it too. And how are you doing that? Is sort of the underlying question. How is it that you're coping through these traumas and these crises as well as you do? And that creates kind of a desire to know, how do we cope through these moments? In Iraq and Afghanistan, and anywhere actually chaplains are deployed, we, in many cases, serve a function much like what Chaplain Caldwell said. It's slightly different nuance to it, in as much as, yes, we are there to be the chaplains, the pastors, rabbis, imams, priests to the service members, but there's interaction with the host nation or the country in which we find ourselves with clergy there. We speak that secret language of faith, right? And when you're starting to do operations, even if it's, or even an exercise for that matter, there's nothing kinetic going on, you're just establishing relationships. Many times the chaplains have access to clergy in that host nation. Faith matters in a lot of countries across the globe. It may not be the faith as we understand it, certainly, but it's way more integrated into their society and their culture and their government, their ways of doing things. And so when we can get a better sense of how things are being received and can translate that faith element, that religious element into the battle space, if you will, to give the commander a better perspective on what this looks like on the ground with respect to cultural impact or religious impact or just, the overall populace reception to the kind of things that we're doing. Chaplains really have an opportunity to play in that. That's a little ancillary to the main reason we're there, and that's to provide pastoral care to our service members. But honestly, if we can prevent something from happening or help to explain things that are going on, then that actually helps to protect our service members in many ways. In my tour in Afghanistan, I was the senior chaplain in country and had 3 different hats. One was your basic typical chaplain. I did worship services and pastoral counseling and walked around the compound and went out on convoys and so forth. But the other 2 responsibilities I had, one was I was the advisor to essentially he was the chief of chaplains for the Afghan National Army, the senior mullah, and I was his mentor as they were developing a chaplain corps for the Afghan National Army. Fascinating perspective to be a small white Christian woman hanging around with a bunch of thug-looking Afghans who claimed to be mullahs. But it was a great experience. But it also helped again for us. How could I do that as a small white Christian woman? Well, it's all a matter of faith. They understood the fact that faith matters even to the American military, and we could have that conversation at that level, and then help them as they were providing ministry to their people, and ways to effectively disseminate that kind of ministry across their corps. My third responsibility was to the Minister of Hajj and Religious Affairs, and that's a political position. In Afghanistan, it's the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. So of course there's going to be a religious ministry, which sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but a political ministry position that is about religion. And so when we were facing a number of different issues, some were very dramatic, very kinetic. We had a huge issue with a Hammett truck that had come down and had killed a number of people, and the only way, and the country blew up. I mean, it was so incendiary at the time that there were riots all over the place. What was interesting is that we put our crisis action team together that evening, and I walked in the room, and somebody said, "Well, man, it must be bad if the chaplain's here." And I said, "Well, what part of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan don't you get?" Well, kind of like the canary in the coal mine, I was the first one sent out. And where did I go? I went to the Ministry of Religion and Hajj to talk to him, to say, this is what my commander, a 3-star Army general, wants to do to kind of move forward. How do we provide reparations to the people who were injured? How do we move forward in terms of helping them to understand it was an accident, et cetera, et cetera. But the chaplain's role in that regard was really a liaison, much as Chaplain Caldwell was saying, to the neighborhood. I wasn't hugging anybody, but I did get an opportunity to connect with so many people to help them understand, where we were moving forward, but again, to use this language of faith. In the position I'm in now, and I thought you didn't ask the question, but I thought I'd throw it in there. I've been in the Capitol now for a little over 5 months. My third day on the job was January 6th, when the incursion took place. What I found out afterwards on January 7th, when I was wandering around and connecting, and my responsibility is to the members, to the 435 representatives that are there, and to their families and staffs. But because of my background, my immediate thought was, well, what about the Capitol Police, who were standing guard and getting beaten up and abused and hospitalized and killed in that event of the day prior? So I walked around the compound and went to talk to the police folks, and went down to their headquarters. I was lost in the Capitol. I mean, they don't give you breadcrumbs when they walk in there, and it's a rather convoluted building, but found my way to the police areas and discovered they don't have a chaplain corps. They don't have chaplains. 2,200 Capitol Police, and there's no chaplain. And the expectation is that if they need some religious help, they can go out in town. Well, that's not how chaplains work. Chaplains are there as you used my phrase, Chaplain Caldwell, and that is the ministry of presence. It's an everyday thing. It isn't just kind of like a fire department where you call them when you need them. It's a matter of being able to walk around and just kind of look people in the eye and read them and get a sense of, are they really okay? They say they're okay, but are they really? And looking for ways to enter into their lives so that they know that somebody out there is concerned for them. What I'm working on right now, and I covet your prayers, is to be able to get them a half a dozen chaplains. And that's been an interesting process along the way, but we're making some headway. Fortunately, some of the decision makers are prior military, so they get it. So that's it from my end, and I'm happy to move forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I want to jump back to Pastor Caldwell real quick. You were mentioning all the different trainings that the chaplains go through, and as you were rattling them all off, I noticed you said weapons training. For all our military guys, I think that would be kind of interesting to note that the chaplains have weapons training. And do you guys carry guns when you do your ride-alongs?
No, we don't carry guns, but it's very important to know how to handle one if you have to pick one up.
Yes, it's
so that's the type of training that we have, just so that we know how to handle them.
No, that's excellent. So one of the interesting things I want to get into right away is when most of us think of chaplains, especially police department chaplains, and all the experience I had up until I met you guys, the chaplains were really there, like Admiral Kibben was discussing, they were there for the officers. The chaplain corps within a police department was there as support for the officers. What makes what you guys do, I think, unique is that you guys not only are the chaplains for the officers, but you're also in the community. And if you could talk a little bit about how that got started, whose idea it was. I know you said that the chief supported it, but how did that come about? And my follow-up question is, have any other cities reached out to you to replicate what you guys are doing?
Yes, a good question. First of all, the idea really came from Chief James Craig. That's where it came from when he introduced neighborhood policing. And so when he introduced neighborhood policing, we united with we call them NPOs, to go out into the community, to build those type of relationships. So it started, our number one mission is for the police officer. That's number one. We're there for them and their family. But because it was implemented, neighborhood policing, we now spreaded it abroad. And now we are in the community, and that's our officers are in the community as well. So it's not just us, our officers out there, and that builds a whole big family of Detroiters. So it works very well. So yes, we have several cities right now. Baltimore, I believe, is coming in September to see what we're doing, and we're planning on having a training day for them. Also, we have a couple of more cities. We implemented the Chaplain Corps in Fairburn, Georgia. Young man started a corps there. We just got a call from another gentleman that used to be a chaplain in Detroit, somewhere in Atlanta. We just got that call. So yes, we have several departments that want to come to see what we're doing so they can take it back to their community as well.
I would submit that list is not long enough, and we have to work on that. I think there's supposed to be some Department of Justice folks on the call. Just a shameless plug. I did a town hall podcast with the Department of Justice last Friday. It's going to air, I think, in August. And I talked about this program that you run, and talked about some of the unique things that we've done in the VIOCE project. I talked about the town hall we did in Alabama and some of the other work that we've done. And part of my mission, or part of the mission of the VIOCE project, is to find unique and successful programs and get them more amplified across other cities, because it seems like there's not enough. One of the things I'm kind of, I guess, I don't know if flabbergasted is the right word for it, but there's a lack of communication or a lack of sharing of best practices among different police departments across the country, especially big cities. And when I'm watching the news this past summer, a year ago, and I'm seeing all these different cities, going up in flames or having all kinds of issues with their community, and then I see Detroit, which has one of the highest African American populations, and it's relatively or almost all quiet. You can see where something good's going on there. There's some trust that you guys have built, and I think when I learned about the chaplain program, I think that explained a lot about how, even like you were just talking about in your introduction, there was a shooting last night and the chaplains were there, and the community responds well to that. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
We get a lot of response, especially when we go on shooting and something traumatic is going on, and we're praying with the family, we're hugging the family, and the first response we get is, I didn't know that the Detroit Police Department had chaplains that pray, and it encourages them. It encourages the family. And then it also calms the scene down, all those traumatic situations. But when they know they have a support system from the department, it literally kind of just, opens the door for more love to be shared. And so we have a ecumenical, we are ecumenical. We have 2 imams, we have a priest, and we have a Jewish rabbi. So we kind of cover all the doors of faith in the city of Detroit as well.
No, I think that's obviously super important, that everybody feels like their point of view has representation. I would submit that's the American way. So, Admiral Kibben, from the experience that you had in the military, what insight could you give to people like Pastor Caldwell or other pastors that are listening here that are interested in kind of replicating the success that they're doing, that you had from your experience in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, honestly, it sounds like Pastor Caldwell's got it nailed. I don't know that I can necessarily add to any of that, but I do think what's important is the collegiality, the collegial spirit among the chaplains, that it's important that everybody among the chaplains understands that they have a common mission, and that this isn't a competition and it isn't an opportunity to proselytize or evangelize. but it's really all about the other people. One of the things we've run into more recently in these last couple of years is this idea of people's rights, which I get, except I don't believe that chaplains are part of an institution so that their rights can be protected. I believe chaplains are in an institution to protect other people's rights, that we have got to be repress to some extent our sense of, well, I can pray in Jesus' name, or I can, read scripture anywhere I want, rather than stopping and saying, okay, you're the person I'm here to minister to. What is it that you need? Where are you on your faith journey? How can I help you to navigate through this crisis with using the tools that you have? And if you don't have tools, then to offer, the tools that you uniquely bring to the equation. I think that's really very helpful in terms of success, if you will. I really appreciate too what Pastor Caldwell is saying with respect to reaching out to other police departments. The more chaplaincy is understood, the more people know what to expect. And there's a great organization called the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, and it's run out of Brandeis University, and they have connected with a number of first responders and their chaplaincies. The state of South Carolina is one example that I can come up with, but there's several other police departments and forest service folks that are part of her organization or related to that. But the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, I'll put that in the chat here shortly. And what that does is enable chaplains to share resources. We're only as smart as the combination of our intelligence. And that is the opportunity for us to share best practices or where we screwed up or where the resources are, what training you're doing. The fact that, Chaplain Caldwell, you're bringing people in to train, I think is brilliant. In fact, I'm trying to figure out how we can get our Capitol Police Chief to come out there to Detroit to get a sense of what you're doing so that they understand it better. I mean, when I was talking to the Capitol Police Administration, they just assumed, as I already said, that they can get their religious stuff out in town, but then they wanted to put it under the umbrella of wellness. And so it would be on the same wavelength as making sure that there's a physical trainer and a dietitian. And that's not what chaplaincy is. Chaplaincy is having somebody beside you, not somebody you go to. So there's just some thoughts. I'm not sure if that's quite scratched the itch you were after, John, but happy to keep on going whenever you tell me what you want.
No, that's good. I want to bring in Pastor Jackson because obviously down in Alabama, he has his congregation and he's very close with his police chief. But I wanted to see, what did you think of what's going on in Detroit and how can we spread that in your area, in Mobile?
Hey, John, and to everyone on the line, I think it's an excellent job that the Detroit Police Department as well as the chaplains are doing. And I can definitely reach out to the police chief because I've always believed that regardless of what's going on in society, the faith-based community should be at the forefront of spearheading to resolve the problem and setting the way to make things good. So I commend Detroit to the utmost. And it'll definitely be something that I can reach out to the police chief and see where they are and see if they've got something along those lines already in place.
No, that's great. I mean, I think, like I was saying at the top, I think there's a lot of police departments that have chaplains. They utilize chaplains, but it's an inward focus. They don't focus in the neighborhood policing aspect that makes what Detroit's doing unique. And I think it's a missed opportunity because if you have, I'll throw it out to Pastor Caldwell, how often do you interact with the pastors of all the different churches in the city of Detroit?
In what regard?
Any regard.
Well, what we do is because majority, or not majority, maybe half of the chaplain corps are pastors, and half of them are ministers, associated ministers in these churches. So we interact with a lot of pastors at times.
Yeah, but that helps you build out like I imagine there's a lot of pastors who are not chaplains with the police department, and you interact with them, and it kind of expands your reach and expands sort of the trust and transparency aspect of the community that helps keep things, you know, calmer in a moment of crisis, so to speak.
Yeah, you're right. You know, we just had a meeting, and it just slipped my mind of a new program that we just set. Maybe I have my assistant chief on. They can help me. But we just had a meeting about organization with pastors that we joined with them to walk the streets at night. So that's another way, you know, when pastors come with ideas and thoughts, then we support them just as well. So AC Taylor, maybe you can bring that point out.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a First Assistant Chief Chaplain Avis Taylor, and Commander Hope, who was with the police department, had many of the neighborhood pastors to be online with us on Zoom, and she appealed to them to be present out in their communities, because it's more of them than it is of us. It's only 105 of us or so. But she appealed to them to make sure that they were present in the community, so that if anything happened in the community before the police got to them, they would be the first person that the community can contact. And I believe at that time we had about 90 other pastors outside of our 100 that was on the line.
Yeah, see, that's awesome how you have that reach. And so, Ollie, I want to bring you in as a former police officer who, you know, you had an experience that brought you close to God, and I'm sure you reach out to police departments. How can we take the message of what Pastor Caldwell's building here and built in Detroit, and what a great model it is for both the community and the law enforcement? How do you see that as a law enforcement officer expanding out? How do you think we can do that?
I'm losing you a little bit. I got some chop in there, and hey, can you break it down to me one more time, please?
Sure. I'm asking you from a police officer's perspective. I'm sure you've interacted with chaplains in the course of your career, plus the faith-based way that you live your life. How can we, from a police law enforcement perspective, do more to replicate what Pastor Caldwell is doing in Detroit?
Man, what they got going on it sounds awesome, especially when you have that bridge, exactly like your chief wanted, and you've achieved it to however level it's risen. It all comes to this. It all comes to networking. They've got something special. They've got a faith base. They've got their faith in God, and they're bringing the faith-based community. I mean, into the faith-based group into the community, and they're all, because we're all in this together, and that's what gets lost in the translation, because it becomes us against them, and for better or for worse, that's what you're married to, because it's friction, and I'm not going to sit up here and say one side versus the other, but what we have is an us versus them, because of whatever you go up, you suit up, you gear up, you go out into the beat. That's your bubble, that's your ecosystem, and you are dealing with a community, whoever, black, Mexican, white, doesn't matter. It can quickly be, and it was long before you got there and long after you left, us against them. And the reason, the interactions are hard. And I'm not going to go up here and cry about the profession or the challenges they face, because we all chose it. But how do we replicate it is through this. It's for me to say, man, there's something great going on in Detroit. Chaplain Smith, Herb Smith, for San Diego PD, and he's one chaplain for the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department's got 3,900 members. I mean, you guys got an army of chaplains, which is awesome. He's one. And so you can see the need is there. And if we're going to drill down faith and we're going to talk about faith in God, you need that to do this job, because you will see evil on levels you can't imagine. And I'm not going to shy away or somebody, hey, I don't believe in God. I'm saying it out of love, not out of condemnation, because we need that to do this job. And that's how you can communicate with people. Now, it doesn't always work, but you've got to have it. And how to replicate it is to connect the dots like this. Like you say, man, we've got one precinct has got 12 chaplains. Man, we've got one for the whole department. So you can see how far, what a disparity. I mean, they teach you all this stuff, how to deal with crisis, how to deal with, drowning babies, how to do this. They got this whole checklist of things they give. They're great at giving us training. But the biggest neglect I've seen in my bubble, which was San Diego County, is faith. They don't teach you about faith, because it's such a critical component. Why is our divorce rate at 90-something%? Why is our alcoholism rate through the roof? Why do our guys go off track and get hooked on dope? Start sleeping with informants. Start doing, I'll tell you the dirt under the nails. If we're going to be transparent with each other as adults, we can't just say, oh, law enforcement, that's the greatest thing ever. There's awesome, and there's men and women doing outstanding work every day. But I see a huge need for what you guys got going on in my world that's all the way across the country, 2,000 miles away. And the only way I can, hopefully I answered it, is just to link people up and say, hey, how did you get this started? What did you have to, let me reach out to you and pass this on to somebody who's still in. Unfortunately, I'm retired. I'm not in anymore, but my new mission is all about the faith, about how you're looking at a dead man, that I was saved by Jesus. And some people, that may be shocking. It may be that may be too much for them to hear. They may leave the meeting because I just said it, but I'm being honest when I said I was about to be executed and Jesus intervened and saved me, and I spent 3 minutes with Jesus. All the glory goes to him. And what is lacking in my ecosystem is something that you guys have, and how it could have it could definitely help. It could definitely help. There's no, because it's its own, and you guys see it every day in the city of Detroit. I don't have to sell anything. You know how the profession is, and you know how the communities are. Not all the time, every time it's us versus them, but how quickly in the blink of an eye it's us versus them. And you want to build trust. Trust is built by a beat officer being in his community day in, day out, doing his job and doing it honorably, and it's over time. It can't just a flip of the switch, because that community was there before you showed up. And when you retire, that community will still be there and the people will still be there. But, to build trust, it just takes time, and it takes something. That's an awesome program. I'm very, very, very envious you guys have that. And to see that you guys didn't have riots and they didn't come and burn your city to the ground. They came and burned a sister city of ours down La Mesa. Man, they almost took the city hall. And I know I'm talking a lot, but that's my take on it.
Okay, so it comes up with a question, and I'm going to direct this to Pastor Caldwell or any of the people on his team. We see a lot in the news about defund the police or reimagine policing, and they talk about hiring mental health practitioners or these kinds of things. And I see you're laughing already. Wouldn't it be better? I'm gonna throw you a softball here. Wouldn't it be better if they did, instead of this reimagining stuff, they actually took what you guys are doing in Detroit and built it into every major city?
1,000 times better.
No, I was talking to Pastor Caldwell.
The world.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna mute myself.
It'll change the world. I appreciate that. It'll change the world. I think the key is that the department has to get out and reach your religious community. You have to do that. And what you find there are a lot of pastors that just want to be pastors. They don't want to be chaplains, but they want to be a piece of the puzzle to make it work and make it happen. And so what we did, we reached out to others and they said yes. And it will help change the world. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's why I always invite Pastor Jackson and Clyde to join these calls, because they're your boots on the ground, running their church and then out of Mobile or Daphne, Alabama, and I just think that there's an opportunity here that we can change the discussion from very, whenever you talk about reimagining policing, man, people lose their mind. I mean, it's like game on, it's like you talk about us versus them or them versus them or whatever, it becomes very adversarial very quickly. Whereas something like what you guys are doing, to me, I know a lot of people are anti-religion, but that's not the point. The point is building trust and communication with the community, with the police department. And what better way to do that than through the faith community? I'll throw that to you, Clyde, or Pastor Jackson, if you want to take that on.
Clyde, is Clyde on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Go ahead, Clyde. I may pick it back off you.
Okay. Good afternoon, or evening, everyone. Yeah, it's John. I mean, the trust within these faith-based communities, law enforcement. Here in the lower Alabama, where we are, in Baldwin County, things are a little bit different as far as the structure of the cities, smaller cities that spread out. So we have to think outside the box when it comes to probably some of the same things that are happening in Detroit as far as to connect with our community. As far as walking, we don't have those things here because we're so spread out. We're not large metropolitan areas, but definitely we need to outside the box of great practices that are on Detroit. Take them here in this part of it.
Yeah, we're only getting every other word. I don't know if you guys can hear what Clyde's saying, but I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, you was breaking up, Clyde.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why. Well, go ahead, Pastor. You can talk.
Well, you're good.
You better now.
You're good now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It must have been. Well, that wasn't me then. That was feedback from somewhere else. Because I didn't change anything. But what I was saying is, in Lower Alabama, where we are right now, we're not a large metropolitan area, so it would be different how we address the community involvement, but we still can do it. We just have to think outside the box of how we can apply the best practices and the lessons learned in Detroit to this area with our faith-based community and our law enforcement. But I'm excited about working with our law enforcement to try to bridge the gap and to have a better community. I think we do a great job here in lower part of Alabama in Baldwin County, but we certainly have room for improvement, and I'm looking forward to it. Pastor, you have anything you want to add to that?
I've been trying to figure out. I've always known that the faith-based community should be at the forefront of keeping the peace and resolving the problems. I think Detroit, you all have done an outstanding job as far as the model is concerned. So, John, make sure that you give that we get each other's information. If you can do that exchange for us, and even in Daphne, we can team up, because I think most departments are set up. I think I heard somebody say something about they just got a chaplain for the police, and whenever they needed to go and talk to someone. But you guys have gone outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's needed, even within Mobile, where the crime rate seems to continue to go up, that you all have put that model together, I think it should go national, to be perfectly honest, and everybody can build off of that to support their particular precinct or their particular police department. But I think you guys have done an excellent job. So I can reach out to Daphne's mayor as well as police chief. If we can get that model as far as the training and everything that you have set up versus them just sitting in the department, waiting for something to happen before they reach out or go and talk to a police officer that's been involved in something. So I think that's great as far as what you all do. I commend you for it. And the one thing that I would like to add, John, and to all of those online, I know we as preachers and pastors and ministers and chaplains, we pour out so much of ourselves. So let us all make sure that we receive something back in where you're able to decompress and get it out and go and talk to somebody yourself, because we're always worried about everybody else. And then it will have a toll on us, especially just slowly coming out of COVID, because I had to go and start talking to someone else because I was always concerned about everybody else and say I needed to look at myself, my own health as well. So don't be afraid to do that. Then you'll be able to better serve others when you're taking care of your own mental, spiritual, physical well-being as well. So I commend you all so much for all you do.
Well, that's well said, and we talk about that all the time, and I know people talk to me about that to make sure I do the same thing. You can't help people if you're not able to help people, so you got to take care of it. The other thing, Pastor Jackson, is I know you have that organization of pastors that you're connected with Mobile. So, and just so you guys know, I invited all the chaplains. I also invited a couple different organizations, including the Chaplains Innovation. I thought they were going to have some people on. I invited the LAPD chaplains, the LA Sheriff's Department chaplains, Las Vegas chaplains, and some of the other ones that we work with through Don Samuels and the Lights On program. But I know there's a lot going on now that everyone's coming out of COVID, so not everyone can make it. But I am recording this and we'll put it out. I also have some interest from the Department of Justice. They were interested when I talked about it on the podcast. So I'll just put that out there for, we're going to try to make this have legs, because I truly believe when you find innovation that works, it needs to be replicated. And it's a totally replicatable program that they have. I don't know, Admiral Kiven, if you have anything else that through all the stuff that you work with in Congress, and how we can maybe get the word out to some of the congressmen, particularly those that are working on the police reform. You mentioned that Pastor Black from the Senate was on. How can we get some information to those kind of people?
No, Chaplain Black is not on here. He's just the chaplain of the Senate. But I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question, John. The House is a confounding place at this point, and it's really just a matter of touching base with your members. As you interface with your representatives, especially for instance, somebody like Chaplain Caldwell, to pull your member aside and say, hey, I just want you to know, I happen to have been on the phone call with the chaplain of the House, and she was talking about the Capitol Police, and I thought you'd be interested in our model. And if you ever have the opportunity to show your representative some of the things that you're doing, and same for you, Pastor Jackson, as you interface with your representative, all of you have the opportunity, have way more access, frankly, to your members than I do, to some extent. But this is a great opportunity for you to speak up and say, this is a valuable model. I honestly think, though, you don't want Congress involved in this. You want it to be community-based. You want it to be based on the needs that you have. As soon as you put government in the equation, they're going to create a paradigm that fits some things but doesn't fit other things. You know your communities better than anyone else. And I think, what Chaplain Caldwell has demonstrated this evening is that, the grassroots element, the 100+ chaplains that they have in the police force, plus the interface that they have with the community clergy, I think that's brilliant. And that works in Detroit. It may not work in Daphne. But the reality is that when folks like John put these things together, and the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, by the way, are researchers who have connections with chaplains. They themselves don't have any chaplains, so they wouldn't be here on this call. But, you know, to interface with some of those and ask the lab, can you get me in touch with some other first provider chaplaincies so that you can have those conversations?
Yeah, no, I reached out, and I'm going to continue to reach out, and sometimes time is not your friend. But we're definitely going to share this around, and I will definitely connect Pastor Caldwell with you guys, Clyde and Pastor Jackson. That was a given. And then also, Ollie, if you want, I can connect you to Pastor Caldwell as well. If anybody wants to get connected, you guys all have my email address. I'll put it in the chat in case anybody doesn't have it. You know, you can always reach out to me. Everybody does. And I want to take the last few minutes here and open up to any other questions from the vets or from any of the people in the audience. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and address your question. First, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. If there's any questions, we only have a few minutes left. Anyone? All right. Everyone's being shy, or?
Yeah, I have.
We're having a hard time hearing you, Tim, but we see you have a question.
I have one question for Pastor Caldwell. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah, I have a question for Pastor Caldwell. I didn't even know that LAPD, I served LAPD almost 28 years, and I've been in gun battles. I've been in life-threatening foot pursuits and fights when you catch them, because it just doesn't end when you tackle them. You know, there's going to be a fight, and sometimes you have to do whatever you have to do to make sure that you get on. And I've never seen, in 28 years, I never saw a chaplain with the LAPD. I did not even know that we had a chaplain corps. The department side.
Each division in LAPD has one chaplain that I'm aware of.
They send you to a psychologist, and you see and talk to a psychologist for a couple of days, and then I've never seen one in 28 years. Never met one. Never had them come out to any of my homicide scenes. The general rule was that the homicide scene, when the family started getting all riled up, our only option was to call for more patrol officers to come, which just escalates the problem, because it's us trying to be more than them in order for me as a detective handling the case to wait until the coroner gets there before we can do anything. And a lot of that can be taken care of if it was a standard operating procedure for them to send a chaplain out on homicide calls, officer-involved shooting calls, and to touch base with officers that are facing discipline. You know, a lot of guys are on suspension, and they're sitting at home thinking the worst, and sometimes they take their lives. Sometimes they take the lives of others. And it's because there's been nobody to step in and fill the gap.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're there to cover every area of the life of a police officer. Because again, without understanding what they face and what they go through each and every day, you won't know how to minister to that particular person. So that is one of our key missions, and that powerful word is called ministry of presence. And we're, again, when an officer is in a shooting, we're actually there at the time in post-training, to talk to that officer even after the fact. So it's a good ministry that we have here. And I just wanted to say this. I have one of the greatest executive team on today, and we have manuals. They created manuals for every aspect of our chaplain corps. We have training for our commanders, training for our deputy chiefs, and a training book, handbook for our chaplains. So again, we have the resources that we would love to share. It's just a phone call away.
No, I'm gonna put the word out, and I'm gonna have a follow-up conversation with the community policing department at the Department of Justice that I work with, and hopefully your phone will ring.
We're waiting.
John, this is First Assistant Chief Taylor. My brother, Marcus Taylor, is on the line. He was a chaplain in the military. I wanted him to come on as a guest. Pastor Marcus Taylor.
Yeah,
he is Panama City, Florida.
Welcome, Pastor Taylor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. If you're wondering why a pastor's in a uniform, I also serve in the chaplain corps for the Air Force Auxiliary Civil Air Patrol. In fact, I am the director of our Emergency Services Academy for our chaplain corps. So I'm responsible for the training and preparedness of our chaplain corps personnel for responding to whatever the Air Force or the Department of Defense or local authorities need us to respond to. So it's my pleasure to be here, and I appreciate my sister inviting me to share with you.
We're excited to have you. Admiral Kibben, I know you have to go soon. If there's any closing remarks you want to make before you have to go, throw it over to you.
Hey, thanks so very much for everything that all of you are doing. Regardless of where you find yourself in the hierarchy, whether you're the chief or the first assistant chief or chaplain in the Air Patrol or a police officer, thank you for what you're doing. It really comes down to that faith matters. And it matters at all sorts of different places and levels. And to my brother, Pastor Jackson, please let me know when you're going to be in D.C. I'd love to see you again soon. So blessings on all of you.
Thank you, Admiral Kibben. Always a pleasure to have you join us. Pastor Caldwell, any closing remarks?
There's a saying that I always say whenever I'm in the audience of people, and that is never underestimate the power of a seed. For you can count how many seeds that's in an apple, but you can never count how many apples that's in that one seed. So plant the seed and look for the harvest to come. Thank you for having us today.
No, I really appreciate everybody joining us, and especially all your executive team. I also want to thank Gloria Magdalenas for joining us, and hopefully you had a little diversion from the things that you've been dealing with, and hopefully you enjoyed this. And thanks to all the veterans and first responders from the Life Aid program. Sorry, Jonathan, you got here late, but at least you got here. And for all of you, we will be in Bend, Oregon next week for our retreat, and we have a lot of really cool new things that we're gonna be doing, and hopefully, if for those of you that are not going to make it to Bend, you can make it to our next event after that, which I think is also in Bend. I don't know, Renata, if you have any closing remarks, and we'll call it a day.